Fascism didn't rise on fear alone. It rose on jobs, debt, and a promise that the state would fix everything. Most people imagine fascism as marching armies, waving flags, and thunderous speeches. But beneath the spectacle, the real machinery wasn't military. It was economic. Dictators didn't control people with guns. They controlled them with paychecks. Welcome to Financial Timeline, where money, power, and history collide. And nothing is ever as simple as it looks. The stage was built by disaster. After World War I, Europe was exhausted. Governments were broke. Industries destroyed. Currencies shattered. In Germany, hyperinflation turned savings into wallpaper. In Italy, soldiers came home to no jobs, no pensions, no future. Democracies were young, fragile, and desperate. Then came 1929. The Great Depression hit like a second war. Unemployment in Europe passed 30%. Berlin sold furniture for food. Rome lined up for bread under monuments of past empires. In this vacuum of chaos, a new kind of politician emerged, not promising liberty, but order. Hitler, Mussolini, Franco. They didn't rise because people wanted dictators. They rose because people wanted stability. They all offered the same deal. Surrender your freedom, and we will save the economy. And in a continent on its knees, millions agreed. When Hitler took power in 1933, Germany was collapsing. 6 million unemployed, industrial output halved, foreign investors gone. 3 years later, unemployment had almost disappeared. Factories roared, highways stretched across the nation. Volkswagen promised a car for every family. To the world, it looked like genius. To Germans, it felt like salvation, but behind it all was an economic illusion so bold it changed history. The secret? They didn't find money. They invented it. The Nazis created a shadow currency called methyl bills, secret promissory notes, disguised as industrial contracts. They allowed the government to borrow billions off the books, hide debt from foreign banks, pay companies with IOUs, build an economy on invisible credit. It was magic. Full employment without visible debt, prosperity without accounting. But every job, every road, every car, every factory was tied to one purpose: war. Autobahns doubled as troop routes. Volkswagen factories could switch to tanks in weeks. The job's miracle was rearmament, wearing a friendly mask. People didn't feel oppressed. They felt employed. And when your paycheck depends on the state, your freedom becomes negotiable. Across the Alps, Mussolini sold a different dream. A third way between capitalism and communism. He called it the corporate state: workers, employers, and government in perfect harmony. On paper, it sounded modern. In reality, it was control. Free unions abolished wages, fixed private companies, owned privately but controlled politically. Every industry answered to the fascist party. Mussolini made the trains run on time, people said. But behind the slogan, productivity stagnated, imports skyrocketed, debt exploded. Public works drained the treasury. Italy's miracle wasn't growth. It was public relations. A nation branded like a corporation, faking profits for investors. In Spain, Franco tried something else. Autarky. No imports, no reliance on foreign markets. Patriotic on paper. Catastrophic in practice. The economy froze, industries collapsed, food and fuel were rationed. The black market became the real market, but Franco stayed in power for 4 decades. Why? Because when the state controls the jobs, the loans, and the food, obedience becomes survival. Scarcity wasn't a failure. It was a tool. Different nations, different dictators, same economic blueprint. Jobs, debt, propaganda, control. Fascist regimes didn't just rebuild economies, they rewired citizens. Employment became loyalty, production became patriotism, dissent became unemployment, economic dependence was the soft weapon of dictatorship. By the late 1930s, Unemployment almost gone, industry booming, national pride rising, but the numbers were lies. Wages stagnated, workers lost all bargaining power. Prices rose, unions abolished strikes, criminalized people weren't richer. They just felt richer because the state told them so. Cheap radios, subsidized vacations, parades, pageants, mass rallies, entertainment as anesthesia. When the debts became too large, when the promises required more than money. Fascism didn't just run out of cash, it ran out of excuses, and so it consumed something new. Land, labor, nations. Economic control evolved into conquest. The final stage of fascist economics wasn't stability, it was expansion. And here's the uncomfortable part. The economics of control didn't end in 1945. They just changed clothes. Today, governments rescue industries with debt, central banks print stability, citizens rely on state-funded jobs. Entire sectors survive only through subsidies. People aren't forced to comply. They're paid to. When your mortgage depends on interest rates, your job depends on public contracts, and your savings depend on government guarantees. How free are you? You don't need censorship. When compliance is profitable, fascism didn't begin with violence. It began with budgets, with the promise that the state could fix everything. And for a time, it did, until the money ran out. Every empire that bought loyalty with jobs eventually paid with blood. Every democracy that forgets how fascism funded itself risks repeating its methods quietly, debt by debt, paycheck by paycheck. Economic control doesn't always march in uniform. Sometimes it wears a suit, smiles, promises growth, offers you a job, and by the time you realize the price, your freedom is already gone. If this changed the way you see history, subscribe, because the past is never past, and the clues to our future are hiding in plain sight.